Got it.
Great. So first off, what can you tell us about these contract negotiations that led to this decision that you'll leave in 1 year from now?
Um, not a lot, I guess. It was just, normal discussions. And I, I've been doing this for 33 years. And the last couple of years, I think you may have noticed, have been a little trying. And I had sort of been thinking about the possibility of retiring, and some things have developed with my family, and that it just sort of came to a point that it felt like a good time. And I felt good about things professionally. I felt good about where the district was. And and we just sort of came to the conclusion that maybe this was a good time for me to step aside.
Yeah. Is there some excitement, positivity, knowing that you are retiring? It can be a nice phase,
Oh,
right?
yeah, a lot of I am excited. I am excited, but I have another year. So I'm trying to sort of temper that with, I've got a lot of work to do. And it's not going to be like a victory tour or anything like that. It's a lot of work because we just are beginning a 5-year strategic plan, and there's a lot of design and implementation that have to go into place this year. So I'm excited to see that. I'm looking forward to seeing that work and continuing it, and really establishing the infrastructure that'll help APS be successful in future years.
I want to dig into some topics, and I want to start with COVID. So much of your tenure will be managing all of these things that were out of all of our control with the virus. Where is APS right now with making sure kids are caught up from what they may have fallen behind from, truly because of online learning and because of COVID?
I think we're right where we should be. I think we understand that this is not a simple solution. The kids came back. Yeah, they lost academics. That's true. They also lost a lot of socialization, and we're still seeing impacts of that. We're still seeing kids that are struggling with being in large groups, or dealing with emotions and relating to others. And I think that's going to take time. And when we came back out of COVID, we told the public then, it's not just going to resolve itself on day one because we opened the doors. It's going to take some years to get back to where we should be. And that's true across the nation. I think APS has addressed a lot of those concerns very, very well. And we're working hard to make sure our kids do well moving forward.
And there's been a lot of bad behavior during this time, kind of recovering from the pandemic. Uh, Does APS need to be doing more to try to address this? It seems like a pretty constant source of frustration for a lot of teachers and families right now.
Well, it's a national issue. It's not just APS, of course. And there were mental health aspects of being isolated that long, and the kids are working it out. So yeah, we are seeing, not about bad behaviors, we're certainly seeing extreme behaviors. And I think that's been the surprise. And so what people need to understand with the schools is we are the single largest provider of social services for young people in the nation. And it's true in New Mexico. We provide health services, mental health services, food, clothing. We provide stabilization in terms of rent assistance for families. And the pandemic just sort of exaggerated all that. And so you're seeing people who are really responding much more emotionally and much more strongly than they did before. And that takes a lot of time and energy in our schools to address those concerns.
Yeah, I know one of the philosophies right now is restorative justice. This is from a teacher to student level, from a district level. How do you feel that is going right now for APS?
I think we still have ways to go on that. We've got a lot of growth. We understand the concept. We have schools that have adopted it to various levels of success. Some are still coming on board. The concept really not being that we ignore issues, but that when kids have behaviors that don't meet our expectations, that we work on educating them to not do it again, and that we try not to just turn our back or just assume that a punishment or consequence is going to teach them the lesson they need to learn. We're saying it's more than that, and it's also about them taking responsibility for their actions, and addressing the victims or whoever was impacted by whatever their behavior was.
Yeah. What do you think of some? No, go ahead.
I said that takes a lot of resources to do that, and we we have, obviously, our school counselors and our school administrators are part of that. You asked if there was more we could do. We have an army of counselors that we have hired on contract to see kids and families outside of the school day to support people who are in distress. And, that's that, if we didn't do that, I don't know who else would. And I think it's just real important that people understand that work hasn't stopped.
Yeah, yeah. What do you say to teachers who are concerned that they need more help, more support to be able to pull out these philosophies from training to the kind of administrative and like you're saying, other help from counselors? I mean, what do you say to those concerns right now?
I think they need to know that we're hiring as much support as we can and that it's not something we're turning our back on. Reality is there's only so many people out there that do that type of work. We've hired anybody, pretty much everybody who's applied, we for that type of work, for those type of contracts, we brought on because we recognize the need is that great. And there just aren't enough resources. I think that's, I don't want to call it like the supply chain, but it's sort of similar in that it's just what you need it, but it's not necessarily there these days.
Yeah. One of the unfortunate things that has been going on with APS during your time is more instances of guns being in school, on school grounds, near schools, with students having them. What are your current thoughts on the climate here? And does APS need to consider something that is even more forceful of a punishment from permanently expelling students that have some kind of violation or other such concepts?
We put forward some policies that led to the possibility of a permanent expulsion. That's something that's actually being done in a lot of districts around New Mexico. So we're actually following the lead of some other districts. I still think that the education of the kid is important, and I worry about when you turn your back on a child completely, what happens. And so we do have to continue to think about systems where children can get educated and learn to not do these really violent acts.
And Tommy, you have about 3 minutes left.
Okay. Um, where is APS with regards to having the total number of staff that they want to have, from teachers to everybody else, with burnout, but with all the things the legislature has done with raising salaries by a lot and doing other things? Where is APS right now with those challenges?
We're in decent shape. Special education is our biggest concern, obviously, because there's just a dearth of special education teachers. They just aren't being produced as much. General education would look pretty good. We still need more bus drivers, custodians, food service workers. We're always looking. But at this time of the year, we had a job fair yesterday and we hired 58 new employees, mostly on those service jobs. But we're hiring and it's a good job. It pays pretty well and you get benefits and there's a pension at the end. So, there's things people might think about in terms of working for the public schools.
Yeah.
Not that I'm recruiting.
Well, you're always recruiting, right? What are your biggest goals for this final year for you?
The number one goal is to really hit the steps in the strategic plan that are required. So we've got it mapped out. Like I said, it's a 5-year plan. It's going to take time. So this year we have some very specific steps that have to occur. I definitely want to hit those. I definitely want to be able to report that we are in a good place. And I really want to help with the transition to new leadership. I really, want to make it as smooth and as graceful as possible. I live in Albuquerque. I've lived here my entire life. I don't want this to be tumultuous. I want this to be a good thing for APS and for the community.
APS as a district has aspects that really are unique. If you could today talk to the person who's going to take your place, what advice would you give for jumping into this massive role?
I would probably give them the advice to really ask questions and listen. It's such a large entity and there's a lot that goes on and there's so many forces that come into play around a school district. Really getting to know the players, really getting to know the key people, and recognize that we have some really great people both in APS and in the community that are really interested in improving outcomes for our kids, and to not turn your back on any of those people.
If I have one more minute, Superintendent Elder, what are your biggest frustrations from your time as superintendent?
Well, the pandemic as a whole was pretty frustrating. That was an incredibly difficult time. I think I get frustrated with the politics around education, that people have politicized, what they believe. And it really is just about how do we educate kids and how do we make them prepared for a really evolving world and all the changes that are coming. And we worry about calendar reform, and I'm like, let's really talk about instruction. Let's really talk about what we're doing for those Yazi Martinez students and how we're helping them to really achieve at the same level as their peers. And I get frustrated we're not talking about the right things.
Well, thank you for your time. This was really great for us. We'll have another year speaking to you, so I'm sure this won't be the last.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah. All right, Monica, thank you.
care.
Scott, thank you.
Take care, Tommy.
Bye.